The snowy Siberian forest at sunset breathed a secret air. The sun, low and crimson, clung to the tops of the pines, casting long shadows onto the sparkling snow. The crunch of twigs under someone's light steps broke the silence. It was Alia, a 7-year-old girl with disheveled pigtails, lost in the boundless white. Her mittens were soaked, her cheeks burned with frost, and fear grew in her chest, sharp as the icy wind. Carried away by her game, she had wandered from the village and now didn't know the way home. In her small hand trembled an old woolen scarf, the only thread connecting her to her warm home, to her mother's voice. Somewhere in the shadows of the forest, behind the trunks, a manul named Tikhon watched her. His thick fur, the color of snow and ash, merged with the snowdrifts, and his golden eyes shone like stars. Solitary and cautious, he rarely approached humans, but there was something about this little girl that touched his heart. Thus began the adventures of a lost girl, a Siberian tale of hope and friendship. Alia wandered until she came upon a small clearing where the snow sparkled as if sprinkled with diamonds. She stopped, trembling, and sank to her knees. Tears streamed down her face, freezing on her cheeks, and she clutched the scarf as if it could lead her home. A quiet sob echoed through the forest. Then, from behind a pine, Tikhon appeared. His steps were noiseless, his paws sinking into the snow, and his fluffy tail swayed softly. He stopped a few steps away, wary, but his eyes, deep and warm, looked at Alia with curiosity. She noticed him and froze, her breath catching. "Kitty?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Tikhon tilted his head, as if understanding her pain. Something stirred within him, perhaps an ancient instinct, or maybe the forest spirit that guided him along unseen paths. He stepped closer and nudged his nose into her wet mitten. Alia, still weeping, felt a spark of hope. Tikhon turned and slowly walked forward, looking back as if calling her to follow. A touching friendship with an animal was born in that moment, and their emotional adventure story began. The forest grew denser, and twilight deepened, enveloping the world in a cold blue hue. Tikhon led Alia along narrow paths where the snow creaked under her felt boots, and branches caught at her coat. The manul moved deftly, his thick fur protecting him from the wind, and his eyes glowed in the dim light, showing the way. Alia, stumbling, followed him, her little heart beating between fear and hope. She mumbled, speaking to Tikhon. "You know the way, don't you? You're good. I want to go home." Her voice trembled, but the manul's presence was calming. He responded with a soft purr, almost inaudible, but warm as breath. Their journey wasn't easy. An icy stream blocked the way, and Alia nearly slipped, but Tikhon, as if sensing danger, pushed her back, saving her from a fall. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf's howl sounded, and Alia pressed close to the manul, her fingers sinking into his thick fur. He didn't flinch, just turned his head, his eyes gleaming with determination. There was something unusual about Tikhon. His movements seemed too precise, as if the forest itself whispered to him where to go. Alia, exhausted, began to weaken. Her steps grew heavier, but Tikhon didn't retreat, nudging her forward. He was her guide in this Siberian adventure, and their friendship, between the manul and the girl, grew stronger with every step. This survival story for a child was full of trials, but faith in a miracle grew within it. Night covered the forest, and stars lit up above the canopies, cold and distant. Alia couldn't walk anymore. She fell to her knees in a snowdrift. Her strength ran out. "I can't make it," she whispered, clutching the scarf. Her voice was barely audible, but despair rang in it. She looked at Tikhon, her eyes filled with tears. "I'll never see Mom." These words broke the silence, and even the forest seemed to hold its breath. Tikhon froze, his ears twitched. Then he did something that remained forever in Alia's heart. He curled up around her, covering her with his fluffy body, sharing his warmth. His fur was soft as a blanket, and Alia, trembling, pressed against him. He didn't leave. His breathing was even, calming. In that moment, Tikhon became more than just an animal. He was her protector, her hope. Suddenly, he raised his head and let out a loud, drawn-out call that echoed through the forest. It was not just a sound. There was power in it, as if he was calling nature itself for help. And then, in the distance, through the darkness, faint lights flickered. The village was close. As if the forest, touched by Tikhon's resolve, had shown the way. This emotional climax in their touching adventure showed that even a small hero Manul can change fate. Dawn touched the sky with strokes of pink as Alia, supported by Tikhon, emerged at the forest edge. The village lights shone brighter, and soon voices were heard. "Alia!" Her mother's cry broke the morning silence. The girl, stumbling, rushed forward and fell into her parents' arms. Tears of joy mingled with her trembling, and the scarf fell from her hands, forgotten in the rush. People surrounded her, their voices full of warmth, but Alia looked back, looking for her savior. Tikhon stood aside, at the edge of the forest, his golden eyes glowing softly. He didn't come closer. His mission was complete. Alia wanted to run to him, but he had already turned away, his fluffy tail flashing among the trees. She went back to the tree at the edge and tied her scarf to a branch, whispering, "Thank you, Tikhon." The Manul vanished into the forest, a silent guardian whose courage remained in her heart. Alia knew she would never forget him, and the forest would preserve their legend of the Manul. This heartfelt story for narration ended bittersweetly, leaving warmth in the soul. Tikhon returned to his solitary life, but somewhere in his golden eyes, a memory flickered of the girl he had saved. The snowy forest kept the memory of that night when the Manul named Tikhon became little Alia's hero. Several weeks passed, and winter in the Siberian village grew even harsher. Snowdrifts grew up to the windows, and frost painted patterns on the glass, as if trying to tell its own stories. Alia, now surrounded by the warmth of her home, couldn't forget her fluffy savior. Every morning she went to the window, gazing into the white distance where the forest darkened on the horizon. Her heart squeezed with longing. She missed Tikhon, his warm, golden eyes that had been her beacon on that terrible night. In the village, life went on as usual. Children were sledding, adults chopped wood, and old women by the stoves whispered about forest spirits that help the lost. Alia, sitting at the table with hot tea, told her younger brother Misha about her adventure. "He wasn't just a cat, Misha," she said, her eyes sparkling. "He knew where to go, as if the forest told him." Misha, a sturdy 5-year-old with freckles, listened with wide eyes and kept asking, "Where is he now? Will he come back?" Alia didn't know the answer, but secretly hoped that Tikhon was somewhere nearby, hiding in the snowdrifts like a ghost of winter. One day, when the blizzard died down, Alia decided to return to that tree at the forest edge where she had left her scarf. It seemed to her that this place was her and Tikhon's secret, a bridge between her world and his forest kingdom. She put on a warm coat, pulled on her hat tugged down to her eyebrows, and despite her mother's entreaties, slipped out of the house. "I'll just take a look, Mom," she promised, "and be right back." Her mother sighed but let her go, knowing that her daughter wouldn't rest until she checked. The walk to the edge wasn't long, but the cold chilled her to the bone. The snow creaked under her felt boots, and her breath turned into little clouds of steam. When she reached the tree, her heart skipped a beat. The scarf was still hanging on the branch, but now it was covered in hoarfrost, as if the forest had decorated it with its jewels. Alia reached out her hand to touch the fabric and suddenly noticed tracks in the snow, small, round, with barely discernible claws. Manul tracks. She gasped, her eyes lit up. "Tikhon?" she whispered, looking around. The forest was silent, but in that silence there was something alive, as if it were watching her. Alia knelt down, examining the tracks. They led deeper into the forest, to that very clearing where she had first met Tikhon. Her heart pounded. She knew it was dangerous to go alone, but something inside whispered, "He's waiting." She adjusted her hat, squeezed her little fists, and stepped along the tracks, carefully, as if afraid of scaring away the miracle. The forest met her with a cold embrace, but now it didn't seem so scary. The pine branches swayed softly, and the snow shimmered under the rays of the weak winter sun. The clearing was the same as that night, as if time had frozen here. Alia stopped, her breath caught. And then she saw him. Tikhon was sitting on a snowdrift, his fur shimmered like snow, and his eyes looked straight at her. He was just as he was, fluffy, proud, with a slight wariness in his movements. Alia smiled. Her cheeks were red, not just from the frost. "Tikhon, you came!" she exclaimed, but immediately fell silent, afraid of scaring him away. The Manul tilted his head, his ears twitched, and he slowly approached. Alia sank to her knees, holding out her hand. Tikhon nudged his nose into her palm, and she laughed, feeling the warmth of his breath melt away her fear. But something was wrong. Alia noticed that Tikhon was limping slightly, his left paw barely touching the snow. "Are you hurt?" she asked. Her voice trembled. She carefully touched his paw, and Tikhon hissed softly, but didn't pull away. Alia frowned, her little heart squeezed with worry. She remembered her mother telling her that animals sometimes get caught in traps that hunters set. "I'll help you," she whispered. "Just don't leave." She looked around as if the forest could tell her what to do, but around her were only snow and silence. Alia knew she couldn't manage alone. She needed to bring one of the adults, but the thought of leaving Tikhon tore at her heart. She took off her new scarf, red, knitted by her grandmother, and carefully wrapped it around the Manul's paw to protect the wound from the snow. "I'll be back, I promise," she said, looking into his eyes. Tikhon watched her, and in his gaze there was something more than just animal curiosity. It seemed he understood. Alia ran back to the village, her felt boots sinking into the snow, and her heart pounded with haste. She burst into the house, gasping, and shouted, "Mom! Dad! Tikhon is hurt! We need to help!" Her parents exchanged glances, their faces full of doubt. "Alia, are you talking about your cat again?" her mother asked gently. "He's a wild animal. He won't come to people." But Alia stamped her foot, her eyes filled with tears. "He saved me. I saw him. He's limping. Please." Her voice trembled, but there was such determination in it that her father frowned and nodded. "All right, daughter. Show us where he is." They got ready quickly. Her father took a lantern and rope, her mother threw on a warm shawl, and Alia led them to the clearing, her little figure darting ahead. When they reached it, Tikhon was still there. He watched the adults warily. His fur was slightly bristled, but the red scarf on his paw made him seem almost domestic. Her father whistled softly. "That's quite an animal," he mumbled. "A Manul, a real one." Her mother gasped, seeing how fearlessly Alia approached Tikhon and stroked his head. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "They're good." Her father carefully approached, holding the rope ready, but Tikhon didn't run away. It seemed he trusted Alia, and that trust passed to the people. They examined his paw. The wound wasn't deep, but a small metal shard was stuck in the fur, likely from an old trap. Her father, used to such things, carefully pulled out the shard, and her mother treated the wound with salve, which she had brought with her. Tikhon hissed, but endured. His eyes didn't leave Alia. She held his paw, whispering, "It'll be all right." When it was all over, Tikhon stood up, swaying slightly. He looked at Alia, then at her parents, and slowly ambled towards the forest. Alia wanted to run after him, but her mother gently held her back. "He needs to go home, daughter," she said. "The forest is his home." Alia nodded. Her eyes glistened with tears. She took off the red scarf from Tikhon's paw and tied it next to the old one, on the same branch. "This is for you," she whispered, "so you remember." Tikhon vanished into the forest. His fluffy tail flashed one last time. Alia stood at the forest edge until the sun set and stars lit up over the village. She knew she wouldn't see Tikhon again, but their friendship remained in her heart like a warm light. The forest kept their story, and somewhere in its depths, the Manul with golden eyes walked his trails, carrying within him the memory of the girl who believed in miracles. In the village, they told the story of the girl and the Manul for a long time, and every time Alia looked at the snowy forest, she smiled. She knew that somewhere there, among the pines, her friend lived his wild, free life. And perhaps, one day, on an especially quiet winter night, he would return to the forest edge to look at the two scarves swaying in the wind, the red one and the old woolen one, a symbol of their unbreakable bond.